Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the leadership class. We're going to cover chapter 7 called Managerial Traits and Skills. So let's go ahead and start the session. In this chapter, we're going to understand how the conceptions about the importance of traits have changed over the past 7 years. Understand the different types of traits that have been used in leadership research. Understand the type of research methods that have been used to study leadership traits and skills, and understand the traits and skills that are most relevant for effective leadership. Then we will understand how traits and skills are related to leadership behavior, understand how relevance of traits or skills depends on the situation, type of organization, and national culture. Then we will also cover the traits and skills that cause some people to derail in managerial careers, and also the limitations of the approach. Okay, so the nature of traits and skills. So first of all, what do we mean by trait? The trait is a variety of individual attributes, including the aspects of personality, temperament, needs, motives, and values. So it's really important to understand the basic concept of trait. So basically, each individual has their own characteristics, and you cannot say that every individual is the same. Like, there's of course certain commonalities, but every personality, they have their own motives, they have their own values, and personality. Then we have the need or motive, which is the desire for particular type of a stimuli or experiences. So every single individual, they have a certain desire for particular types of stimuli or experiences. Then we talk about values, which is internalized attitudes about what is right and what is wrong, ethical and unethical, and moral and immoral. So every single has different values. They base their activities of the day based on certain internalized attitudes that they have, set as their value system. They have their ethical and unethical behaviors, and they have the moral and immoral set of definitions. And finally, the skill, which is the ability to do something in an effective manner. So, 3-factor taxonomy or principles of skills. Basically, we have 3 major factors. One is technical skill. This first one is knowledge about methods, processes, procedures, and techniques for conducting a specialized activity, and the ability to use tools and equipment relevant to that. So technical skills have been becoming very, very important in today's career and jobs. So it used to be that like each job had a certain methods and skills, set of methods and skills that were kind of basic. They would stay the same for a while, and everybody would be like safe, just knowing those basic ones. But gone are those days. Nowadays, it's like all based on technology. So whatever job you have, one of the major important factors in your job is to understand and be able to basically cover all those techniques, all those technical stuff. Be computer savvy. Let's say that's one of the many, which is very important. You need to know certain level of methods and skills about certain technical equipment in your company. Let's say if you work in a publication company, you need to be familiar with the machines, the publishing machines that you use in your company. You need to know certain softwares. You need to be able to use the internet and all those tools and techniques. So it has become very important. Then we have interpersonal skills. Interpersonal skills is like almost always important. It's been important forever. As soon as like human beings started living together, interpersonal skills have been very important. It's the knowledge about human behavior, interpersonal process, because we need to understand, no matter what technique or method or what machine we use, we always are dealing with people. So to deal with those people, we should be able to use our skills in communicating and connecting to those other people. You need to understand the feelings, the attitudes, and motives of others, and what they say, like empathy or social service, and ability to communicate clearly and effectively. So communication is not just you say something and it's just communicating. It needs to be effective. You need to be able to find the best way in order to communicate. So a lot of time, nowadays, the technical skills come very handy when it comes to interpersonal skills and communication, because when you are trying to communicate with a certain number of co-workers in your company, you basically are trying to reach them all by using all those technical stuff that you have, and you want to be effective. You don't want to just use the longest and the most time-taking way to communicate with other coworkers. You want to find a way that is the best way for you to communicate, the most effective way, so to speak. And then you need to be cooperating in your relationships, in diplomacy, listening skills, knowledge about acceptable social behavior. These are all important when it comes to interpersonal skills. Conceptual skills are general and analytical ability or logical thinking and proficiency in concept formation and conceptualization of complex and ambiguous relationships. So conceptual skill is more of your understanding, your concept, of getting a concept or general ability to analyze or think logically. So you need to be creative in idea generation and problem solving. You need to have the ability to analyze events and perceive trends, also anticipate changes and recognize opportunities and potential problems. So when it comes to conceptual skills, it's more of understanding your situation. Let's say if you're the leader of the company, you need to be able to analyze the problems that are brought to you by your subordinates. You can't just say, okay, you guys solve it and I'm going to manage you. Part of the management, part of the leadership is to lead by example by solving the problems and then communicate it to your staff. So you need to understand how to analyze certain situations efficiently within the time frame that you have, and be able to get the results that is required. Okay, well, let me give you a case study, a small mini case study, because I want you to, apply what you're learning just right away. So the case, Carmen is Okay. So Carmen is an employee of the Skies and Clouds company. She comes to your office, you're the leader or you're the manager, and explains how the staff have not been using the guidelines for the operations and just been doing the way they like, and which has caused an unproductive situation. So as a leader, how would you respond to this situation? Okay. So the case is, one of your employees come to you and say, you know what, nobody's following the guidelines that we have for the operation, so everybody just does whatever they want. They operate the machines the way they like. It's just they don't go exactly the guidelines, and we are where we are. So basically, is complaining about the performance of the other employees. So, as a leader, what would be your response to the scenario? Use these technical skills, interpersonal skills, and conceptual skills that basically is going to be useful in order to basically take care of this issue. So, take a couple minutes and think about it. Think how your technical skills or interpersonal skills and conceptual skills is going to help you to come up with this solution. And also think how technical skills, interpersonal skills, and conceptual skills of your employees is currently used and how it should change and how it should be used. So just take a couple minutes and let's discuss this case together. Does everybody understand the question? The case and the question? Okay. So please take a moment. I would really appreciate if you would apply your own experiences, like make it as personal as it can be. It's always good to, bring in examples of your performance, of your leadership, whenever possible. So try to be as, personal as possible. And try to use your own examples, your own leadership examples for this case. Okay? So let's take a moment and go ahead, think about it, and we're going to discuss in a couple minutes. Okay? So please go ahead and start answering the question. So who wants to start? Does anybody wants to speak to the microphone so that they can hear you? Any volunteer? Any volunteer to tell us about it to everyone? Yes, very good idea. Yes, Mr. Samet. It's always a good idea to double check and see if the employees have received the guidelines, if they already know the guidelines, if they have already been trained about it, or they just have been put, you know, to their positions and they've been doing this without even knowing that there is a guideline. So it's always good to directly raise the issues to employees and directly communicate it, use the best ways of communication, you know, like conferences, meetings, and see what is needed to be done. Okay, what else? Who else wants to share his or her answer? Does anybody want to share the answer also? Is everybody else listening to the case? Please participate. Okay. Since as a leader of the company, you're well aware of the methods, processes, and procedures to persuade your staff through the coaching, the job, the training, interpersonal skills. Very good. It's always good to connect to the employees. It's always good to relate and bond with them so that when you're communicating, they will be more receptive of what you're telling them. Because if you're just talking from a, you know, questioning stance where you're just questioning their performance and criticizing them, it doesn't necessarily work the way it would, rather than creating the bonding with them, befriending them, and that way they will feel that relation attachment, and when you comment, when you tell them something, they're more receptive. Yeah, it's always good to understand what is the main reason that employees are not interested to work according to the instructions. The employee gotta find a key problem cause. Very good. Okay, how about others? Why don't others are participating in answering the case? The main problem is their skills. Yeah, maybe their skills are not furbished enough to be able to take care of the problem. That's true. Yeah, that's also a great idea, using a bottom-up approach and involving the employees. A lot of times, or at least sometimes, you see that their guidelines that are written not necessarily the way they should be written, and when you talk to the employees, you will understand why they're not practicing the guidelines. So that's very true. It's important to know their feedback, see why they're not interested in performing it according to the guidelines. Maybe you can revise the guidelines. Maybe there are better ways than the guidelines say. So it's always good to communicate and see what is their side, what is their feedback. And it's also about convincing them the company's guideline and feedback them better to give more effective products. That's very true. Yes. And besides being productive, they need to obey and follow the rules and regulations to be able to be on the same page. Sure, Saifullah Khajar, would you like to share your answer with us? Your microphone is activated. If you want to tell us your answer, please go ahead. Otherwise, please mute your microphone. So, okay, let's go ahead to the next slide. Defining the early research on leaders' traits and skills shows us that traits are adaptable to situations, are alert to social environment, are ambitious, achievement-oriented, assertive, cooperative, decisive, dependable, dominant, energetic, persistent, self-confident, tolerant of stress, and willing to assume responsibility. So these traits show us that what generally leaders are, like what type of skills do they have generally, what type of traits do they have generally. Most of the time they should be adaptable to situations, because if you are a leader and you just are able to perform under certain type of situation, and not all situations, you would have a lot of problems. Going back to the slide and to the case, Mr. Ghaffari, before we move on. As your friend said, when there is a complaint about not conforming to the guidelines from one of the employees, first of all, I would say the best approach is first understand what's the problem. You know, as a leader, you always need to find a problem. So when somebody comes to you and raises an issue, you need to understand what is the problem. So in this case, the problem is that your employees, according to this employee just here in front of you, are not performing according to the guidelines. So this has caused some productivity issues. So first of all is for you to investigate whether it's correct or not. So if it's not correct, you need to find out why this employee did that, what was the intention. And even if it was, then you need to understand exactly where she's come from. So a lot of times she's just concerned about the productivity. It's out of good faith. She's in front of you telling you about it. So that's really, really nice. But if it's just not true, then that's a different story. So first of all, I would say check the viability of the problem, whether there is a problem, as the way she says. When you find a problem, you find that there really is a problem, then you need to figure it out, you need to think about it, use your conceptual skills, and then understand and analyze the problem and situation, and analyze how you will respond and fix the problem, and then use your interpersonal skills to communicate it through your staff. Make sure everybody understands, and make sure you are able to tell them and teach them and educate and train them what they need to be trained, so they are able to use the technical stuff and to use the procedures and processes and everything according to the guidelines. So that will be my suggestion. So going back to the traits and skills, you're welcome. We see that adaptability to situations is really important when it comes to leadership. So as a leader, you don't just say, I can perform under this situation. Wherever there is a problem, as a leader, you got to be able to adapt. You got to be able to come up with the best ideas and best ways to tap on the situation, fix the problem, and be able to perform. And also the social environment. You need to be social. You need to be social. You need to be ambitious, and also try to achieve the goals that you set. Make sure you're focused on the achievements rather than just minor stuff. Okay? And then you need to be assertive. You know, as a leader, you can't just be compliant and just take whatever there is, and that will be your way of performing. As a leader, you gotta be assertive. You gotta express your thinkings and your thoughts on different situations, on different processes happening in your company. So you got to tell your employees how you think, and you got to tell them how you want them to perform. So your expectation is you got to assert them, you got to tell them. You got to be cooperative. There are leaders out there that they don't cooperate with their staff, with their subordinates. So basically, it's really hard to work if it's not cooperative. When you are leading a bunch of employees, it's definitely a group work. It's a teamwork. You cannot just say, okay, I expect you to do this without, cooperating, without having that, sense or feeling of a team and group work. Then you gotta be decisive also. You can't just, expect your employees to decide for you and you just give them suggestions. You have to decide. Leadership comes with decision making. So as a leader, you are required to make decisions all the time. And also dependability. The people should be able to depend on you. You cannot just be responsible for certain stuff that you like to do and then forget about your other responsibilities. You have to be reliable and dependable. Dominance is depending on the way that you manage and lead the company. So it's not something that you need to necessarily have, because when it comes to different types of leadership, not necessarily telling, but like compliant leadership, participative leadership, all those type of leadership, you would be basically involving others, so you're not just the dominant. But definitely you need to be energetic, you need to be active, you need to be persistent and self-confident. You need to have confidence when you're performing. You need to be tolerant of stress, and you should be able to and be willing to assume responsibility. So a lot of times leaders don't like extra stuff to do. When there's a problem, they always rather just assign it to somebody else rather than fixing it themselves. So they don't like assuming the responsibility and be responsible for everything. So for you as a leader, it's important to be able to assume responsibilities. Don't just give it to others without really analyzing them and understanding, let's say, that's this certain employee's responsibility and that's how you want it to get done, and then just sign it. But rather than just signing it without really thinking about it, just signing it because you don't want to do something extra. So that's not what you want to do. Then skills. Skills is more of personal skills of the employees and the leaders. So basically skills like being intelligent, conceptually skilled, conceptually being aware of the concepts, being aware of the different methodologies, be creative, always be diplomatic and tactful. You always use diplomacy when you want to solve a problem. Like referring back to the case we just discussed, if you use diplomacy, you will try to basically find a way to involve your staff in understanding why the guidelines are not followed properly. You need to be fluent in speaking, because when you're communicating with your employees, you need to be fluent. You need to be able to communicate properly. You need to be knowledgeable about the work. Like your knowledge, your understanding about the work that you do is really important when it comes to your leadership, because if you yourself don't know it, how could you communicate it to somebody else? Then you need to be organized, persuasive, and socially skilled. So these are more of like your personal skills that are going to be very, very important when it comes to your performance as a whole. Okay, according to this research that measured with the thematic apperception test, decisive means you are able to make decisions. You're firm on your decisions. You just don't tell people something and when they don't do it, you just say, okay, doesn't matter. And dependable means people can depend and rely on you. When you say something or when they ask you to do something, they can rely on your word. You're a person who does what he or she promises. So then you're dependable. Okay. So the managerial motivation, there is also a need basis for that. Like you need for power, you need socialized power orientation or personalized power orientation. You need achievement, you need affiliation. And there's an optimal pattern for large organizations that is strongly socialized power, moderate need for achievement, and low need for affiliation. So when you analyze stuff based on the needs in your organization, there would be like different type of organization and different type of managerial motivation. So when you need the power as a leader, you're trying to get that socialized power. You try to get that personalized power. Optimal power is what is called, means it's like the best or the most efficient pattern for large organizations. So when it comes to optimal pattern for large organizations, optimal means the most efficient. They're more focused on socialized power. They have a moderate need for achievement, and it's large, like a tiny little bit of achievement would be for every single for every single department will add up. So as a whole organization, it would be a huge achievement. So you need to focus on the main goals rather than just every single detail. And then no need for affiliation. You don't need to be affiliated necessarily. You as a leader for large organizations are more of just supervising other departments. But when it comes to smaller organizations, it's going to be different. So Another study, minors' managerial motivation, measured with a sentence completion scale and correlated with advancements. So desire to exercise power, desire to compete with peers, and positive attitude towards authority figures. So you can see here, in this type of research that was done, the performance of the leader was very much correlated with the desire that they have to exercise their power. So every single person likes to exercise their power in order to see how it feels, in order to enjoy the process, and in order to do their job. Then there's always desire to compete with your peers. You want to outperform. You want to excel in performing what you do. So if your other competitors are in the same industry doing the same thing, you want to make sure you do better. You're better than them. And you have the desire to compete with peers also. So the sense of competition is always good to have. There's this wrong perception that people think if you compete against your coworkers, it's not something good. But it's not true, you know. Competition always raises the bar of performance because you're always competing in order to do better. So, but it's all about healthy competition rather than just competing to compete. And then you need to have a positive attitude towards authority figures. And these are all important figures in managerial motivation. So just a question to all of you, what is your motivation? So please compete with peers. Is when you're competing with your coworkers. Well, because mostly our perception of competing is competing with your competitors. But competing with your peers means with your coworkers. Like inside the company, you are also competing. And it's not bad. It's competition in performing and doing better, not just to bring others down, but to stand out. And you can, in the process, you can help others to do better also. You can coach them through. So that's what we mean competing with peers. And then my question to all of you is, what sort of motivation do you have? The peer, yeah, peer means means your co-worker, people in the same line. And then the desire to exercise power. The desire to exercise power means when you become a leader, you enjoy using your power, because as a leader, you will be given some you enjoy using your power, because when you are assigned as a leader, certain powers will be given to you as part of your position. So leaders will enjoy using that power. That power, just using it is also enjoyable. So let me just re-ask my question again. What is your motivation as a leader? So please go ahead and start responding to this question. What is your motivation? Okay, anybody wants to answer? Go ahead. I expect more participation, please. When it comes to cases, please go ahead and start answering and participating, because that way I understand that you're following the concepts. If I'm just talking and you guys are just listening, how would we be able to give me examples. What motivation? And you don't have to just say these that are on the slide. You can come up with your own. Very good. Okay. So, what is your motivation for others? Okay, who else wants to answer that question? you. Your motivation is really use of power. Running that services to the public. Okay, very good. So desire to exercise power in order to do better or do great. Doing your work, competing with peers, and positive attitude. Okay, very good. I want everyone to participate, please. Those of you who are not answering, go ahead and answer. Using power personally and delegating is some of the. Now we're going to start our party. So you can always delegate and assign certain powers or certain jobs to your subordinates or other coworkers. So you don't necessarily, as a leader, have to get all the jobs done. But you gotta have a plan on how to get it done, and you gotta be part of it for sure. You cannot just say people do it this way or that way without you even touching a single project. So you gotta be involved. It's okay to assign parts of those jobs to others. Okay, let's move on. So this research basically measured the behavior in an interview and the traits of effective managers. Strong efficiency orientation. As a leader, you want to be focused on efficiency. You want to have a strong socialized power, high self-confidence, a strong belief in self-efficacy, internal locus of control. So as you can see, as a leader, you need to focus on efficiency. And effective managers always try to efficiently focus on efficiency. They try to have strong socialized power. They try to have self-confidence in them. Because if you don't have self-confidence in you, how could you convince others to pursue what you're telling them to do? So your self-confidence is really, really important. You gotta have a strong belief in self-efficacy and internal locus of control. Okay. So interpersonal skills of effective manager continue with a strong oral presentation skills. As a leader, there are a lot of times that you're required to come up with presentations. You got to present, you got to talk to them, you got to convince them to do certain things and not to do certain things. So it's all about your performance and how you convince people to do what and not to do what. Your interpersonal skills come handy too, you know. When you are communicating, you want to create bonding, relationship, that kind of a rapport with your employees. So it's really, really important. And ability to manage your group processes, and ability to build member identification teams, you know. So you need to understand as a leader that working as a team is it should be your priority. So teamwork, working together as a team, really helps the performance of the company. To conceptual the skills of effective managers, you're talking about inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. So inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning is also important to understand and know what's the definition. So when we are talking about inductive reasoning, it's more of the bottom-up approach. So you basically have a certain bottom basic values and concepts, and from there you come up with the bigger, larger scale of arguments. But when it comes to deductive, it's a top-down. So it's like you try to come up to smaller details from the larger preset. So you might be using deductive and inductive according to this different situation. You cannot just say, okay, I always use deductive, or I always use I'm going to use inductive. It all depends on the situation. Okay. So I want you guys to give me examples of deductive and inductive. Who's gonna give us some examples? Examples of deductive and inductive. Please. What is not clear, Miss Akari? Yes. Negative reasoning is deductive. Okay. Yeah, as I was telling you, inductive is when you are using the bottom up. So you use the smaller principles to come up with the bigger ones. So you start with the small ones. But the deductive is when you use the top-down. You use the top-down logic, you have the basic principle, and then from there you reduce it to the big ones, to the smaller ones. A famous example is, for deductive, we say all men are mortal. Then we say Aristotle is a man. So you come up with a basic rule that applies to everyone. All men are mortal. and then somebody is a man, so then therefore that man is more. But when it comes to inductive, it's like the other way around. You start with the smaller one, then you generalize it to the bigger, and you generalize it the way it applies to everyone. So I hope now it's clear. The centralized organizations are using a practical example of deductive and inductive reasoning is, let's say when you are coming with the guidelines, you as a leader might say, okay, employees, I want whenever there is, let's say, this product that you're producing, let's say you're producing keyboards for computers. So according to your guidelines, then you write them. If you're using deductive approach, which is top-down, you say every keyboard should have all these keys on it, and each of these keys should perform like this. So you set the guideline for general, a universal guideline for all the keyboards that are produced. But when you are using deductive, which is the top-down, so in that case, is the top-down. You say, so the example, the example I said was a deductive. So you come up with a general rule. All the keyboards should come with this feature, and then your employees will just follow. But when you use the bottom up, you're saying that just you start with single keys. Like you say, this key should do this. It should be on the keyboard, and this key, and this key, and you start with the smaller parts of the keyboard, and then overall, when they put all of those together, they create a keyboard together. It's just a different approach, or better, you tell them exactly from the top that this is the way you want it, and then they apply it to all keyboards. Or you just go one by one in details, and then they will, putting all the stuff together, they get to that final guidelines. So even your guidelines could use this inductive or deductive approach. So when it comes to details, when it comes to parts, when it comes to products, it's always better to have a inductive approach, which is the bottom up, because you start with the details, you start with the smaller details, and then come up with the general idea. But when it comes to services, it could be a better idea to use deductive, because you give them a general perception of what they need to do, and then they can just detail it down. So it all depends on the type of products that you use, on the type of service that you provide, and the type of leadership that you think is best. So now give me some examples. Okay, everybody understood deductive and inductive? Could you give me some examples, your personal examples? Okay. So this type of research that was done by AT&T. AT&T is a telephone company in the United States. They realized that desire for advancement, dominance, interpersonal skills, cognitive skills, and administrative skills were very important when it comes to leadership and longitudinal and like over the time of leadership. We have an example from Mr. Sama. Deductive reasoning, your team leader provided an information. So AT&T thought after the research that the desire for advancement was really important because companies want to advance, want to get better, want to move on and move forward. So that was one of the leadership most common traits. And a lot of times leaders would like to dominate and have dominance. And then interpersonal skills were very important according to them. And cognitive skills, being able to analyze and understand the situations. And administrative skills are also important. How to administer. And after 20 years, they understood that achievement orientation, self-confidence, energy level, and a low need for security are the most important. So you see here that over the time, there are different traits that are important. Like in the short run, these are just like you like to dominate, you like to use your interpersonal skills, and desire to advance and move forward. But over several years, you will be using your achievement orientation. You want to achieve those goals with something. And you want to have self-confidence. And you want to use an energy level with you is satisfactory. So an example of a cognitive skill basically is the ability to analyze a situation. Let's say when it comes to problem solving, when you're a leader and a problem is raised to you, when you use different techniques of like breaking down the problem into chunk sizes and then solving each part of it, and then overall it will be solved. It's a technique you use in order to solve a problem. That's called cognitive skills. Cognitive skills are those that help you understand the situation and solve the problem. More of analysis. Okay. So CCL research on managers with direct. So those managers who derail or who will be drifted away from the main goal, who will leave or are not on track of what they should be following. Freelancing managers and managers who were dismissed or transferred or retired early or plateaued. So those managers that are moved, that are transferred, that are basically moving forward on the next step, being promoted, those are who will derail. Those are who will not just focus on one single thing that they were focusing. They might just, leave their main area of focus. And traits and skills and competencies of successful managers are emotional stability, lack of defensiveness, integrity, interpersonal skills, and technical capabilities. So let me see. I have a couple of questions here. So by plateau, do you mean promoted or changed? They are like retired, or they do a lot of activities. They get to a certain level that they don't have any change anymore. So they become stable. So they stay the way they are after a while. So that's for plateau. Then I have another question. What is the cognitive versus conceptual? Okay, cognitive is when you use different analysis and methods of analysis to solve a problem. But conceptual is more of your perception, is your concept that you have of something. So your understanding, your definition in mind of certain stuff is more of the conceptual, but cognitive is more of understanding, trying to analyze it, trying to understand it in details. And so the difference is conceptual is more of you digging in your concepts, your perceptions of certain things. But cognitive, you don't have those perceptions. So you use cognitive skills to get to that conceptual skills. So cognitive skills are your tools whenever you face a problem to get to the conceptual skills. So cognitive skills help you understand and get some concept and perception of something. So they are interrelated, but they are different. Yes, cognitives are analytical skills, but conceptual is more of your perception, your understanding, and the picture you have of some problem in mind. You need to analyze in order to get a picture, right? Okay. So traits, skills, and competencies with successful managers. As you can see here, this is a nutshell. You see that how emotional stability, lack of defensiveness, integrity, interpersonal skills, and technical and cognitive skills are important. So your leader, or you as a leader, need to be emotionally stable. Emotional leaders might be good for a while, but generally and overall, it's not going to perform. It's going to be counterproductive, because you as a leader are required to be stable, because people want to rely on you. You remember we discussed the dependability. So for you to be dependable, you must not be like a very emotional person. You got to be able to control. You got to be in charge, and you shouldn't be defensive. When people comment, argue, or question you, you should not just try to defend yourself. You got to understand it. Maybe they're wrong, so you can prove them wrong. But you shouldn't be arguing with them just because you want to defend yourself or defend your ideas. So you got to be open. You got to be comfortable with criticism. And you need to have integrity and interpersonal skills, technical and community skills. Okay? So as you can see, the specific traits related to leadership effectiveness, you're talking about high energy level and a high level of stress tolerance. Self-confidence is there. Internal locus of control. Having control, internal control, and having control orientation. A very good explanation, Mr. Aziz. Yes, it's more our brain's techniques and like methods in order for us to learn, understand. So emotional maturity, personal integrity, socialized power, motivation, moderately high achievement orientation, and low need for affiliation. So these are the big 5 traits in leadership. So if you just put certain skills together, we call them something. So for surgency is when you have extroversion or you're outgoing. You're a person who just goes out with other people. You have energy and you have need for power. We call this surgency. You have the consciousness, which is dependability, personal integrity, and need for achievement. It's more of your dependability, your integrity, and also the need and the desire you have in order to achieve. Agreeableness is when you're cheerful and optimistic. You always look at the positive side. You nurture people. You're sympathetic. You help. You try to nurture people. You have the need for affiliation. You want to get affiliated with your employees. So we call it agreeableness. Adjustment, when you have emotional stability and you have the self-esteem and self-control, locus control, or control for self-locus or self-control, control for self. And then intellectence is when you're curious, you're open-minded and learning-oriented. So these are just general categories, putting all those specific traits in them. Surgency is when you have, this is like the type of trait is, we call it surgency. So when you are full of energy, when you are, so basically surgency is when you are emotionally reactive, emotionally very, very cheerful and active. So the meaning of the term just in itself is not as important as you understand these skills are creating that surgency. But the word surgency in itself means emotionally reactive. So it's kind of related with this. When you're emotionally reactive, you're assertive, you're outgoing. So that's why it's very much related. So managerial skills and effectiveness. You have the technical skills, conceptual skills, and interpersonal skills. We talked about this in the beginning. So just an extra explanation on that. Technical skills include knowledge about methods, processes, and conceptual involves good judgment, intuition, creativity, and ability, meaning, and order of ambiguous and certain events. Interpersonal skills is knowledge about human behavior. So as you can see, conceptual skills is the result of your cognitive skills. When you use your cognitive skills, you get to certain intuition, foresight, a good judgment. But in order to do that, you need to first of all, analyze the problem. And then interpersonal skills, including knowledge, human behavior, ability to understand feelings of others, and stuff like that. Other relevant competencies are emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is a term that it refers to being intelligent emotionally, being able to understand people, being able to create rapport with them. It's more of relationship management. Social intelligence, system thinking, and ability to learn are also very important. So if you look at here, situational relevance of skills, you have the skill level and you have the managerial level, right? So as you can see, your conceptual skills, interpersonal skills, and technical skills, they are ranked there. So as you can see, for the top managerial level, you need to have the highest conceptual skills. You need to have the second highest interpersonal skills, and then technical skills. So technical skills are the basic. But when it comes to lower management, it's just technical skills the most important. Interpersonal skills is the second, and the conceptual skills is the last, because they have not got to the level of getting a clear picture and understanding of the situation. They're at the first level. So at that level, just the technical skills are important. This is very, very helpful. Yeah, technical is highest when it comes to lower management. So for leaders, we are looking at the end of the bar, where conceptual skills are the most important. So it's really important to understand that, the higher you are, the more conceptual understanding you need to have. So transferability of skills is difficult to transfer lower level management skills, and it's a disengagement about transferability to upper level. Disagreement, sorry. So as you can see, because there's a big difference, the big difference between the lower management and the higher management, top management. And why is that? Because of their experience, because of their exposure, because of the picture they already have in mind when it comes to top management. So it's difficult. It's difficult to transfer from lower management to top management. You need to get to that level, be able to do the transfer. The requisite skills in external environment is a mix of skills change over time. So it's impacted by globalization, technological development, and social change. So you see that external environment factors are also important. And then finally, application for managers. Guideline for understanding, improving relevant competencies is maintain self-awareness, develop relevant skills, and remember that a strength can become a weakness and compensate for weakness. So, as you can see, the basic guidelines: be aware of yourself, know yourself, and you're a leader. Know your weaknesses and strengths. If you're too powerful, if you think you're too strong, it might be a weakness in itself because you're not improving, you're not looking at your mistakes or problems. So that's why it becomes a weakness, because you become so much full of yourself. You become so much happy about what you are, and then you forget how you can improve. You need to work on your weaknesses, no matter who you are. If you're a leader, you still need to work on your weaknesses. You still need to do better. You still need to improve. So that's really important when it comes to managers and leadership. You need to understand who you are. You need to know yourself. You need to, when you know yourself, that's the first step to know others. But if you don't know yourself, how would you be able to know others? You gotta know yourself, and especially as a leader, you gotta do it. Okay. So before we end the session, let's go ahead and have a final task together. Okay. So your task is gonna be from this slide. Yeah. Compare the top management and lower management and explain their differences. Okay, so I want you guys to tell me what's the difference between lower management and higher management. Explain the differences. So please take a few moments. I'll give you a few minutes to just think about it. We'll discuss it. Everybody needs to participate. So I want all of your answers here. And those of you who are not participating, you're losing points. So please make sure you participate, especially on this last task. I want everybody to participate. I'll give you a few minutes to think, and then we'll discuss your answers. Any questions so far? Any questions? Okay, go ahead. Your time starts right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what you have as the answers. Higher management think more on achieving goals and always providing the strategies, vision, and mission companies should have. Lower management more deal with activities. That's true. Lower management is more involved with the activities, but higher management is more of planning, like coming up with the major guidelines. And top management need more conceptual skills. Lower management, technical skills is needed. High level. Top management consists of senior managers and decision makers. Lower management always look at their management program. Yeah. Lower management, you always just look at the guidelines. You don't come up with guidelines. You don't come up with changes. You don't come up with policies. Top management needs high level of conceptual skills contrary to technical skills, which is the lowest level of learning curve. On the other hand, the lower management top level of management consists of board of directors, chief of executive, middle management, branch managers, departmental managers, responsible top management. More time. The lower level of management is also known as supervisory. The supervisors or officers. And top management are policymakers, lower management are implementers. Very good. Lower management always deal with implementation, problems, and issues for supervisors. The graph means the higher management level, the more they're going away from technical skills. That's true. Top management is responsible for planning and controlling. The lower management is responsible for technical issues, getting near to conceptual skills. Top management prefer long-term plan. Planning and goals. So directly for product and service. Short-term plan. That's true. Lower management usually face the challenge and do it. Top management, conceptual skills. Top management are those assigned with a higher task for management functions like planning, directing, controlling. Top management deals with company's policies development, while lower management deals with issues and motivating directing workers. Top management sets goals and lower management achieve the goals. Top management have responsibility of planning, lower management works directly with employees of organizations. So very good. Awesome, yeah. As you can see, the lower management is more of implementing what they're told to do. It's just the policies, more of technical stuff, advising, supervising the employees and the staff to do what they're supposed to do, make sure the training is right, make sure everybody's doing the job correctly. So the higher they get, the more they get involved with concepts, with solving the problem, with coming up with the guidelines. Because guidelines are what? Guidelines are the solution that the managers, top managers came up with for the lower management and for the staff to utilize. So when you get to the top management, you get to analyze the situation. You get to come up with solutions and answers to those questions. So it really matters from top to lower or lower to top how it differs. It's important to know the difference, and it's important to know the requirements, because if you're promoted to a higher level manager, it's important for you to understand that your job is just changed now. You got to understand. You don't look at the problem, just look what we need to do. When you see a problem, you won't look at the guidelines when you're at top of the management. You already know the guidelines because you created the guidelines, or you understand them. So you are solving the problem for each and every single time. So the difference is really fundamental from lower and top management. So lower is just implementing what you're told. But the higher level of management, they are those who find a way, show the way, and give it to everyone. Okay, any questions before we end the session? Any questions? Does anybody have any questions? Can you guys hear me? Okay, what about the assignment, Mr. Faisal? What questions do you have about this? It should be 10 pages. It's 10 pages for each of the assignments. So 20 pages, yes, 20 pages altogether. That's correct. Yes, 10 pages for each. Okay, what other questions do you have about assignments? The YouTube video, I don't know why YouTube video is not able to be played there. I don't know. Maybe you can just search it on Google or on Yahoo, and then that is correct. End of the month is the deadline. You have 2 weeks from now. I see. Okay, but you can probably look it up on Google and at least just read the writing, Instead of watching the video, you can just see the script of what he says. You can look it up in the Google, use Steve Jobs' speech in Stanford University, and just read it instead of watching. The 2 assignments are emailed to all of you. I emailed it to you last week. You already have cases, yes. You don't have any final exam. Your projects are your final exam. So make sure you do them the best you can. I'm not sure if I understand what you say, Mr. Faisal. You send us what? Closed words? What do you mean by closed words? Are you talking about Steve Jobs' speech? You just search the script of Steve Jobs' speech at the opening of Stanford University. Yeah, search this. Most probably you'll find it on Google or Yahoo. So instead of watching the video, if you cannot see the video, go ahead and read it. So it's so good. Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, so since there's no more questions, and thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I'll see you next week.